Emblem Sigurd is here, and he is adding a ton of mobility to our meta. Let's jump in and talk about Emblem Sigurd himself, his new B skill, of course the Emblem Ring, all the implications of that Emblem Ring, and should you pull. Let's start off with his preference weapon, Holy War Spear. So this has Canto 3, and this is a permanent Canto 3, unlike something like Regan's where it's only turn 1 through 4, which is already really strong. We have Slaying, we have a new bonus called Gallop, and what this essentially does is it gives 2 extra spaces of movement. That's correct, you heard me right. 2 spaces. So now we have a 5 movement cavalry, which is nuts. He also gets up to plus 14 all his stats. He gets 20% true damage based off his defense, and this includes AoEs, which is a big deal. He gets damage reduction halving, but that does not work with AoEs notably. And he also heals 7 HP after combat. Now, one of the big things we have to talk about, of course, is does Gallop get around stall? That's going to be one of the biggest things we're going to have to test when he comes out. Technically, it's not the same bonus as the +1 movement that stall hits, so we'll have to see if it interacts in the same way. If it does not, it makes Sigurd way stronger, but if it does offer a counter to Sigurd that already exists in the game. So that's going to be like one of the number 1 things we have to test. The next thing we have to talk about, of course, is his preference special, Override. So this is a 3 cooldown special. It does 150% damage AoE, so this is like a blazing special, right? But the big difference is you get a box pattern, a full box pattern. So this is kind of like Growing Wind, but instead of targeting like the unit and then having a box around that unit, it's actually going behind them. So it's actually much better pattern. It's an insanely powerful pattern, and because it does 150%, it's also just like wins on both sides, right? You're like getting the full massive pattern while also getting all that damage. But if that wasn't enough, also if he hits 2 or more foes with that AoE, including the target you're aiming for, right? He gets a free Gale Force. That's right, he gets Gale Force. So you're gonna have a unit who can go in, AoE the enemy team, hit a majority of the team because the AoE is so big. Then you're gonna have another action afterwards, which means you can threaten the enemy team in SD, or in like something like Aetherite's offense, you can just continue like Gale Forcing essentially, which is really, really good. Also, on top of that, we're also going to get 40% non-pierceable damage reduction. This is going to work like Armored Beacon, where essentially it's going to check to see if your special is ready or the foe special is ready. And if that's the case, you'll get that 40% non-pierceable DR, which is really, really nice as well. This is just a really powerful special. The fact that it's a 3 cooldown AoE with just all the perks on it, including a Gale Force and non-pierceable DR, like this is just ridiculously good. Like, holy shit. We also then have Attack Defense Excel in his A slot, which is really nice to see another version of this in the game other than just Agnether. Might be his best A skill. We'll have to see if like you really want to stack damage for the AoEs with like a visible attack stat, or if you love this flat DR that Excel can offer and will make him much more bulky. We then have a new tier 4 B skill, Momentum 4, and the way this will work is if the unit or the foe initiates combat after moving a space, you're going to get attack and defense -4 on the foe, you're going to get guaranteed follow-up attack, you're going to get 20% true damage based off the amount of spaces moved. And this does work with AoEs, which is really, really big. And it goes up to 20. So you can get 20 true damage that works with an AoE, stacking on the true damage he's going to have in his own weapon, which means that he's just going to hit really, really hard with these AoEs. It's going to be very difficult to not get reduced down to 1. You're going to have to stack on that AoE damage reduction, like via rocks and stuff like that, which is really good. But there's more. Oh my god, this is like a Legoose Friend 4 skill. Like, it just keeps giving. So if you initiate combat after moving, you gain another effect based off the type of special you have equipped. This is really awesome. I love this kind of design. So if you have an AoE special, you'll get a special jump before combat. Before you actually like have your special go off, it can get a special jump effect on that, which means that you can essentially pre-charge your AoE as you're going into combat. This is really good for a multitude of reasons. First of all, it allows you to just spam AoE specials, right? Which is a big deal. The second thing is it makes it so that you're not weak to things that pulse down your specials, right? So if you have like someone who's trying to like knock your special down, so if it's already pre-charged, now you can just go into combat and then charge up your AoE and still hit them with it. So this is insanely good, right? Like absolutely bonkers good. And then also, if you're just using a typical offensive special, like something like No Quarter, you'll get a special jump before your first attack. So also very nice there as well. The amount of special jump you get is based off the amount of spaces moved. If you move 3 or more spaces, you'll get X equals to 2. So you'll get 2 special jump, and if it's not, you'll get a special jump of 1. Now, why this really matters is because Sigurd's special is 3 cooldown. He has Slaying, so it'll be 2. So that means typically if you want to guarantee this, right, you're going to need Sigurd to move at least 3 spaces. Now, it's possible that like he'll have already AoE'd earlier in the game, and so he'll AoE and then hit. So it might not need the full 2, but if you do, you'll have to move a little bit, which isn't the biggest deal on calves. Typically, you're going to be using a lot of movement. We then have Fatal Smoke 4, which is very nice. It's a bit of an homage to like Legendary Sigurd, who had Fatal Smoke 3. But now we get to the really big thing, the thing we have to talk about, the Emblem Ring. Okay, so we have Sigurd's Emblem Ring, and what this essentially does is you get an enhanced engage special. This is going to boost your special damage by the number of spaces you moved from start position to end position of whoever initiates combat. So it could either be the foe or like, whoever's equipped with this. A max of 4 spaces, so you're not going to get like the full 5, but right now only Sigurd can move 5 spaces, so it's not the biggest deal, times 2. So this should be about 8 extra damage you can add to your special, which is nice, but nothing too crazy. The really crazy part is next. You get Canto X. That's right, you just get Canto X. And the X is going to be based off your range. So if you are a melee unit, you're going to get Canto 3. That's nuts. It's not like turns 1 through 4. It's just Canto 3. You just get that. And if you're a ranged unit, you get Canto 2. This is ridiculously good. Like, this is just so insanely good. We just got Attack Speed Mastery, which allowed ranged units to have that. But it was only Canto after you attack a foe. So there was like a limit on it. This allows for just like insane openings in SD. And just, having Canto obviously is very, very good. But having Canto 2 on a ranged unit is just a big difference between even Canto 1, and the same can be said for melee units. Canto 3 is like you could just go in and kill something and completely back out, which is, it's nuts. It's very, very, very powerful. But there's another effect. It also grants at start of turn, you get 1 extra space of movement. This does not stack, which is very notable because it won't allow units who have 4 movement naturally, like let's say Brave Seleth, to get 5 movement. It will only cap at 4. And then it also excludes ranged cavalry, which is also very big in my opinion. Having a 4 movement ranged cavalry is just too powerful. I think that would definitely break the game in a lot of different ways, so I'm glad to see that there's that restriction as well. Now, of course, just like every other Emblem Ring, only 1 hero can have this equipped at one time, and it does give up to +10 to all stats based off the merges you have on your Emblem hero. But now let's talk about the actual implications of this ring and what kind of effect it will have on our current meta. So one of the big things, of course, obviously, is going to be the massive increase in mobility for most heroes. The one thing excluding is ranged calves, which isn't the biggest deal in my opinion. You're also going to be able to get the extra space of movement for infantry and flyers, which kind of bridges the gap between the mobility of a cavalry unit, which is really nice as well. It means that you can kind of have these flyers and infantry units on those Pathfinder teams that they really didn't fit on before because they just weren't high enough mobility. The only ones you really saw were like Pathfinder users or like units who gave out like the ability to ignore terrain, right? So being able to put that kind of in there is really nice. It kind of makes everyone into a Brave Felix, sort of, right? It gives them the mobility of Brave Felix at least, right? Which is really cool. It also allows all melee cavalry to be 4 movement cavalry units, which is massive. One of the things you'll always hear from people is that, oh, this melee cav is really nice, but he doesn't have 4 moves, so like it kind of restricts their use in SD. You really want 4 movement in SD, so now every single melee cav can have that, which is really, really cool. I'm really glad it just allows more options in that role. Of course, Canto 3 on melee and Canto 2 on range is just a game changer like I was mentioning earlier. You get the extra damage from specials, which is nice. But here's the big things. Pathfinder just got way stronger. Being able to have that much mobility on any unit, really, except for ranged calves, just allows that team archetype to be very much more flexible because of this ring. And so I think this is just a very big game changer for Pathfinder in particular. It also makes Atri way better, as Atri can turn off Pathfinder effects, right, that are not innate. So that's very, very nice. Love that. Another big thing is stall. Stall is going to be a big pivotal effect you're going to want on your Summoner Duels units now, because it's just going to be able to shut down this ring completely, right? There is no anti-stall in this ring, which means if you do have this on, it can just shut your movement down to 1, which also means that Harsh Command Plus will probably get a little bit better as well. We've definitely seen Harsh Command Plus already in the meta, but now that we can have this on a lot more different units, Harsh Command Plus value goes up as well. So that's very, very cool. A lot more dual Thor you're going to be seeing in your future. And then the last thing, of course, is Canto Control. It's just now a must on every team in Summoner Duels and Aether Raid's defense. I think most people already, like if you're at the higher levels, were running Canto Control on all your Aether Raid's defense maps, and especially in Summoner Duels as well. But now with this, you really, really need Canto Control. I think not having Canto Control will just allow your whole team to get like easy diff destroyed, because there's just gonna be so much mobility in the game that extra Canto will really allow people just to go in, hit and run, and kill things and get all the way back to safety of their saves. So I don't think that will necessarily be a big game changer, but it will increase the value of Canto Control even more. Okay, let's talk about Emblem Sigurd's stat line really quick. We see that he has very high attack, very solid defense, and very low resistance. He has middling speed, which is nice, just so that it helps him get that guaranteed fall attack off, but it's not so high that like he's going to be like winning any speed meta checks, right? But overall, pretty solid stat line there. I think when it comes to game mode, Sigurd's going to obviously be seeing the Ether Raid's offense. He's going to be a great Gale Force unit in that mode. The thing is, he does have healing, which kind of sucks because you really want to run like double Fury, obviously, so you can get into Wings of Mercy range and have everybody else come in. Him being an initiator is just like a perfect role for him almost, because having that big of an AoE means you can wipe the entire team and you get the extra action, which means that he could like really go in and just like take out 2 big foes. He's going to have the power to get through most near saves with that big of an AoE with that much true damage. The one thing that's holding him back in that role is the healing, as it will make it very difficult to get Fury 4 to work for that Wings of Mercy range. So that's the one thing. I think it's possible we see him on Ether Raid's defense as well. Maybe you use like a more open map, kind of like how we saw like Legendary Sigurd back in the day. I'm not 100% sure on that. We'll have to do some testing, but that is an option. And then of course, I think we're going to see him in Summer Duels a ton. Now, the one thing I will say when it comes to Summer Duels is that we have to see the interaction between Gallop and Stall. If Stall does shut off Gallop, I think that will be a big hit to Sigurd, as that will kind of like give him a lot. The one thing he doesn't have is like an anti-stall effect like Legendary Yuri has. And so if he gets shut down to 1 movement, that's going to be a big deal, because he's not like Felix, who can just move 1 space and get his like action back. And then he has to actually engage in combat, right? And so that's going to be one thing that will definitely be a weakness for Sigurd. But we'll have to see how it interacts, right? Because if Gallop does not get hit by Stall, then he's just going to be insane. He's going to be a very, very powerful unit. And I could definitely see him just going crazy there. And then, of course, when it comes to roles, what is Sigurd really doing? He's a Gale Force hit and run nuke unit. That's the 3 things he's really focusing on, of course. Okay, before we move on, let's talk about a Summoner Duels team that we might see Sigurd in. Now, obviously, I think Sigurd might be strong enough where he just shows up in a lot of different teams, where he just kind of can be slotted in wherever. But I think one of the big teams we will see for sure is the Pathfinder, like Dagger team, that Cav line team you've seen a million times, and he's going to be the center of that team. You're going to probably want to run Pathfinder Dagger in your second spot. You could run something like Duo Dagger or like the Wind Dagger, but I think that Mythic Dagger is just by far the best because she can give Pathfinder to other people while also running Cancel Control, which is really big. And she can even be your Harsh Command Plus user, which means that she can help get rid of Stall on your other units, which is really nice. In the third slot, I think we're going to see Brave Calm pretty consistently here. Brave Calm just got way better in my opinion because Gallop is a bonus, meaning that Brave Calm can copy that. So now you have 2 5-movement Cavs on your team, which is insanely powerful. So I definitely think Brave Calm will be taking up that third slot. Now, when it comes to the 4th and 5th slot, I think it will just depend on the map and what kind of team you're trying to run. I can definitely see being a save here. Sometimes you can use a Pathfinder team and have the save be the target of Dagger's Pathfinder, and then have Crom repo that save into position, and then they kind of act as a protection for you to set up your line of Pathfinder and then have them go in. So I think that's an option. You could also see another support unit here possibly. Or even just more melee Cavs. And then I think in the 5th slot, you're probably going to have a ranged nuke typically. Ranged nukes are really nice to have on those type of teams. Some of the things I could definitely expect to see here are things like Brave Bernadetta, who not only will be able to nuke extremely hard, but also offer some nice support to the team. You could also see something like Katie and Lind here. Katie and Lind is really good as well because she can turn off that terrain effect. It's even possible you can see something like a Green or even Duo Leon here, though Duo Leon does have that hard counter in the meta, so I definitely expect to see him quite a bit less. Either way, this is just a basic archetype you could possibly see for Summoner Duels, but I do expect to see Sigurd quite a bit depending on that Gallop interaction. Okay, let's move on to the Emblem Ring tier list. This is where we're going to be looking at how powerful each of these rings are. I do have Emblem Sigurd's ring in 2nd place. I think Celica's is just a little bit better overall, and the reason why is that we know for sure Emblem Sigurd's ring will be weak to Stall, which means that having that extra movement and Canto is insane, don't get me wrong, absolutely insane, but it can be shut down by effects that are already in the meta, which is Stall and Canto Control. And so I think that's something we'll have to be more focused on. While with Celica's ring, it only gets shut down by anti-warping, and it's just proven to be really, really strong. I think they're pretty close, but I do think I'm going to give the edge to Celica. In 3rd place, we'll have Marth. Slaying is just really, really good, especially when you can stack it. We've already seen that like throughout the months he's been out, so not a big surprise there. And then down in last place, we'll have Emblem Ike's ring. Once again, it's a good ring, but it definitely does not have the functionality of the 3 rings above it, so that's definitely something holding it back. Now let's move on to the Emblem Hero tier list. So this is going to be my Emblem Hero tier list, and I think this will change depending on the Stall interaction. I think if Stall does affect Sigurd, I'm going to keep him where he's at. I think he'll be the 2nd best Emblem hero in the game. I think he's just really insanely powerful. He has some really big nuking capabilities and mobility options. And so I think that is where I'm going to have him at. But if he doesn't get affected by Stall, it's definitely possible he surpasses Ike and actually becomes the best Emblem hero in the game. But I'm not completely sold quite yet. Emblem Ike is still, obviously the best Omni tank in the game. He's meta influential in pretty much every game mode and like just a complete nuisance to deal with. And so I'm going to keep him in first place for now, but it's definitely possible Sigurd does take the first place with some testing. Down in S rank, we're going to have Emblem Selka. Emblem Selka is a very solid unit. I think her best place is Aether Aid's defense currently. She's just really good there because she has a massive threat range and she has pass, so she can get past anti-warping. In Summer Duel, she's usable, but she's definitely not as powerful as she needs to be to get through like some of the premier saves, like Dio Fjorm or even like Myrrh sometimes. So I'm going to keep her there. And then all the way down in B tier, we're going to have Marth. Marth is a pretty powerful melee nuke, but he just doesn't compete with like the top tier units like Brave Felix when it comes to that role. And so I'm going to keep him down in B tier. I think he is usable, but just not top of the meta by any means. Okay, with that said, let's move on to the rest of the banner. So number one color obviously has to be blue. Not only do you get Emblem Sigurd, but you also get Mythic Lumera, who's one of the best mythics currently if you're trying to tank. And even if you're not trying to tank, she's really good at removing ice. And so she just really fits into a lot of different teams. And she offers some really powerful support with that earth terrain. We also have another Emblem hero in Emblem Selka, and of course Emblem Selka is just a fantastic unit, but most importantly she gives you that Emblem Ring, which in my opinion is a must pull. It's such a powerful ring and totally affects your entire account, just making your entire account better, allowing you to open up different types of strategies for every single game mode. So I think that is a very big reason to pull on this blue, as you're not only getting a chance at one Emblem Ring, but 2 and 3 amazing units. So I think blue is just a fantastic pull to pull from. In second place, I'm going to have green. Green does have 2 offensive mythics, which is really nice. It can help boost your Astra scoring, and they both are very solid mythics as well. Sather offers that end turn support, which is great for Gale Force teams, or even turning off annoying things in like tanking teams. And then Hathor offers that nice support for just boosting damage and giving out some stats. But of course, the biggest reason you're going to be pulling for green is Attuned Micaiah. Attuned Micaiah is one of the most powerful units in the entire game. She's amazing in every single game mode. She's an amazing nuke. She's an amazing support. She can duplicate fodder, which is nuts, and she has a unique echo skill. So like obviously green is very stacked as well. Great color to pull in if you do not have those Astra mythics already merged up. In third place, I'm going to have red. Obviously, Emblem Marth is here. Emblem Marth himself I don't think is the biggest value, but his ring is, and so if you don't have the Emblem Ring, this is a good chance to pick that up while pulling in blue to get the other 2. When it comes to Yuri and Hinoka, they're both solid legendaries. They're both good. They're not top of the meta anymore, but they are pretty good, and they can increase your arena scoring, so if you need that, this is a great place to pick up some arena merges. And then in last place, we're going to have Colorless. I think Colorless is a pretty big miss here. The only thing really redeeming it is Evail. Evail is essentially going to have that double scout support, which is really nice. She is a solid nuke I think people kind of sleep on, and she has some amazing fodder as well. But you also have Golveg and Guinevere, who are just very, very bad units in my opinion. Golveg is a terrible Aether Aid's defense unit, and Gwyn is a pretty terrible legendary as well. When it comes to fodder, I do think their fodder is pretty good, but you really don't need merges for these units because of the Aether Aid's defense mythic, and then you could use Guinevere for arena, but I would rather invest into a different legendary who's actually going to offer a lot more value. Okay, with all that said, let's move on to the final part, should you pull? When it comes to the pros, you have an amazing blue share, one of the best blue shares we've had in a very long time. You get a new Emblem Ring, which is just absolutely brokenly insane. I think it's so good, and I think it is a must-have eventually, maybe not here, but definitely eventually. Emblem Sigurd is just a completely broken nuke, and I think he's going to be great in a ton of different game modes. Momentum is a great tier 4 B skill, and I think you're going to see this on a lot of different calves, and it's going to help them a ton just to be really offensive and just offer a ton of power. Special Jump is one of the best effects in the entire game, and so being able to get that on your B skill while also getting other effects is really nice. We do have a solid red share here as well, and we have Attuned Micaiah, who is one of the best units in the game, so obviously getting a chance to pick her up is always a win as well. Now when it comes to cons, we definitely have the bad colorless share, which is a big thing, and the big one I really want to talk about is that Emblem reruns tend to be better than their first banner. Now I don't know if that's going to be the case here, because we do have 2 Emblem heroes sharing already, and so having Celica and Sigurd here is really, really insane. But historically, we have seen the Emblem unit share with either the new Emblem hero in 3 months or share with a new legendary or mythic, and so sometimes you can actually get a better pool on the second rerun, but that's something you'd have to wait for. I do think this share is really good right now, and so I wouldn't feel bad about pulling for Emblem Sigurd or even Celica here. And the last thing, of course, is we have Halloween coming up soon, and I know a lot of people love those Halloween banners, so you might want to save some orbs for that as well. Okay, with that said, that's going to be my Emblem Sigurd analysis. I do think this unit is ridiculously cool. I'm very excited to play with him. I think he's going to be horrifying in a ton of game modes, and people are going to end up hating him, but we'll have to wait and see. Now I'd love to hear from you. What do you think of Emblem Sigurd? What do you think of Emblem Sigurd's ring? Are you going to be pulling on this banner? And if so, who are you going for? I'd love to hear about it, so make sure to drop a comment down below. As always, I'd like to thank all my members for their constant support. And if you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe. This has been Oblivion. I'll catch you all later with more Fire Emblem Heroes.